today, what I want us all to do first, I want everybody to show your project if you have it, like show it up on screen. I want to look at them. And then I want you to tell me the best part about making it. Like, what was your favorite part? And what was the hardest part? What was something that you found hard? Rebecca, would you like to go first?
Yeah, and the hard part is to make it fly because you have to prove things, and if it not fly, you have to prove another and another and another to make it fly.
Yep.
The funny things that I have done of this project is that I have found with this project, like painting and doing origami.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like doing origami, but I only know how to do two origamis.
What are your origamis you can do?
And the boat and the airplane.
Cool.
This first was an airplane, and then I painted and converted a bird plane.
That's fun.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Michaela or Camilla, would you guys like to go?
I do my project, but I do it like a graphic, and then I do the object, but no salió como quería.
Aw, I like it.
Yeah. It flies, but in open places.
So it doesn't fly straight, it likes to turn a lot?
Yeah, because I do this thinking about the forest and like how like in the jungle like that.
Yeah. That's cool. What was your favorite part about making it?
I like painting. Wow,
Painting?
very fun.
Yeah, that's good.
And also drawing.
Drawing? Yeah. I'm not a very artistic person, but we like to paint a lot at my house, and we have wooden squares, and we like to paint on wooden squares. That's what we like to do for fun. Do you draw for fun outside of your project, Camilla?
I paint, but don't no sometimes. No,
Sometimes, yeah.
no, not all days. Sometimes.
Yeah. Michaela, do you want to show us your project? Do you want to tell me one fun thing about doing it? You don't have to show me it, or just something about it.
So the funny part of making it is that I had to do it over and over and over again until it flied.
Mm-hmm.
So I had fun making it. And the difficult part, I think, was seeing where I could make it fly, because outside of my house, it's like mini yard, but it's literal mini. My room, it's like square, and the hallway from there, it's very small. So it was
called narrow. If you want to know the word, when it's not very wide, that's called being narrow in English. Oh. That's cool though. Thank you for sharing, guys. So basically what we heard is that one of the things you guys all thought was kind of hard was making it fly, right? You said you guys had to do it more than once. Do you guys remember a little bit of what we talked about last week when I started talking about the design process? Do you remember that at all?
That first we have to consider the bones of the bird, you said, to put the prosthesis correctly.
Yes, that was the first thing we looked at our design process for our project, right? When we were making our prosthetic birds, we had to make the bones. We had to make it strong enough, right? So what did we do? Do you guys remember what we did to try that?
Search if one person already do that or no, and how he or she did.
Exactly. We looked at what had already been done. We looked at research because we wanted to see what was out there, right? And so what was that? Rebecca, you said you looked at origami, right? Origami is kind of like a form of research, right? What have other people done? Did anybody else do some research for their planes or want to tell me about it?
I wanted to do with another type of paper. I do it first, but it doesn't fly because it was too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to prove in another. It's this. I tried that. It's not heavy, and I put it like this, and it doesn't fly. And then I have to prove with the normal paper, and it flies.
Yeah. Did anybody else have something like that happen? So what you guys are all telling me that you've done, I'm going to share this. I can't share my screen, but do you remember what we talked about last week when I told you about the design process? Where we'd look for a problem and we'd do research and then we'd build a prototype to test it. And then we'd see if our prototype worked and then we'd try it again. Do you remember that circle that we talked about?
You said that first you have to do a side model and then prove it.
Exactly. So that's the design process where you start with a problem, right? Your guys' problem was, how do I make a paper bird and how do I make it fly, right? That was the problem we gave you as your project. Well then, okay, we have this problem. So what did you guys do? You did some research, you looked at some things, some origami, or you just looked at a piece of paper, thought about things you already knew, right? What does a paper airplane look like? What does a bird look like? And when you guys thought of all of those things, that was you figuring out what had already been done. What did you already know? Then after that, you guys built your first part, right? But nobody's first try worked, right? We all had to do it more than once. So that's where the design process becomes a loop. So we had our problem, we did our background research, we built our first model, our first paper airplane, our first paper bird. And when that model didn't work the way we wanted it to, what did we do? Rebecca, you gave a really good example. I don't think this paper is working well. It's too heavy, right? So that was a problem. I think the paper is a problem. So what did you do? You said, I know that I could use a different type of paper. Then you went from there to, I'm going to build my plane out of a different piece of paper. Then you tested it again until it worked, right? So that is something called the design process, where you start with one idea and you go in a circle of asking a question, making a solution, redoing it until you get to your final answer, right?
But why do you don't tell that process about testing? Because you test the if that flies or don't flies.
Can you repeat your question, please? I'm sorry, my computer moved.
Why do you don't put that is testing process? Because you test if that flies or don't flies.
So is the question, why do we have to do this testing process?
No, why do you don't instead of drawing process to testing process, design process to testing process?
So it's all part of the same process. There's certain times when you're doing it in a really big project. Because when you get into really big engineering, you don't just do a project for a couple days. You don't just do a problem for a week. You're doing the same project for months and months and even years. So because those projects take a really long time, they're usually broken up into, this is our design this is their design process. This is our testing process. This is our research process. So we kind of break it into smaller categories when we're over a really, really long time frame so that it becomes more manageable, right? Because a year from now, I'm not going to remember exactly what I did. So you need to do that process within each of those like sections of the design to make sure you get to the best. When we're doing our project's a little bit smaller, right? We were working for a week on our project. So that means our design and our research and our testing all kind of became one continuous cycle where we're starting, okay, what is my problem? I'm going to make a design. Now I'm going to test it. And if my testing says it doesn't work, I'm going to go back to figuring out what the problem is and then make a new design. I want to share my screen to show you guys a couple things. So this is what we're talking about with our design process. Can you guys see this? This big circle?
Yes.
This is what we were looking at last week, right? We looked at this at the end where we had these different steps, of our different process. So this is what you guys were doing, right? And this was that cycle. But when we're looking at, now we're going to go a little bit away from our process, our project, okay? We're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about how this applies to bird wings specifically, right? We're going to take it and apply it to the real world case. So when we want to take it and look at it, there's a few things to think about when a bird is flying, right? All of you guys had different looking projects, right? We gave you the same assignment description, and you guys all came up with something that looked really different, right? Something that was unique and cool. So that type of variation exists within bird wings. Each bird that needs to fly has its own specific type of wing for the type of flying that that bird does, right? Your guys' projects probably don't fly in the same way, but they all still fly. And that's the same kind of thing that happens with birds, right? So when we look at different types of bird wings, different bird wings have different shapes. Certain bird wings are a little bit fatter and a little bit shorter, so they're not quite as wide. Other birds' wings are longer and are a little bit thinner. Other wings even still have different shapes with their feathers. All of these different things in different wing shapes change the way that that bird flies, right? So for instance, let's look at here. Let's look at, these are something called a pheasant. That's what this wing is from, is a pheasant bird. And pheasant birds don't fly very far at one time. They fly up a little ways and then come back down, and then fly up a little ways and then come back down. So they don't glide. They don't stay flying for a really long time. So their wing is designed to be short and powerful, right? Does that make sense? Short, powerful, let me fly really quick and get off the ground, and then I'll come back down. But when we look at something like an eagle, it's really common that eagles are soaring and flying through the air for really long distances, right? So an eagle wing is shaped really differently than a pheasant wing because the type of flying that an eagle does is different than the type of flying that a pheasant does. So you have to make sure you have those different wing shapes. So when we look at those, can you guys look at, if I can put both of them on the same screen, can you guys tell me what is different about a pheasant wing and an eagle wing? What do you guys notice when you look at it?
The pheasant wing is smaller than the other wing.
That's true. What else is different between this wing and this wing?
That the eagle wing is way longer than the pheasant wing.
Exactly. So they have two different wing shapes, right? So what does this tell us when we look at it? If pheasant wings are better for really short, quick flight, and eagle wings are better for gliding. Do you guys have any ideas? what we can think is, does that maybe mean that a long wing is better for gliding? That changing how long our wing is makes it easier for the bird to glide, and that maybe having a shorter wing is better to increase power and to fly up really fast? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys know what a pheasant looks like? No? Let's look at a pheasant real quick, this is what a pheasant looks like. So see how it has really short wings? And it just flies up really fast and then comes back down. That's what a pheasant is, just so you know. So what we've seen here based on these two wings is that different wing shapes depend on how the bird flies, right? So this same type of thing we can probably see in your guys' projects, and is also something we see in like airplanes. So I'm going to show you another picture. These are what we call airfoils. Airfoils are different types of shapes that you could give a wing. And right here, this airfoil shape is the airfoil shape of a blackbird. Do you notice how this is different than what is here? This is a dolphin flipper. So the different shape of a wing matters, right? So if our wing shape matters, what do you think is important in our wing shape? Can you guys tell me some things you think is probably important?
And the type of materials that I use.
Exactly. I'm not talking about if we're making a wing. I should have been more specific. The type of materials are important if we're making a wing. But if I'm just looking to make an idea, to make a design for a wing, can you tell me some materials, or not materials, what might be important about the shape? What are some differences between these different shapes that you guys notice?
Large?
Mm-hmm. This one right here, right? This sailboat wing, put a little star next to it. This one's a lot thinner, right? Than this one. This one's really thick, right? So that makes a difference. What else do you guys think matters?
That have different names.
They are different lengths, yeah. So some of them are shorter and some of them are longer, right? When we look at, this is a dragonfly, so we can look at our lengths here. A dragonfly to a blackbird, this is 12 millimeters, and this is 6 centimeters. So they're on a different scale, right? What else do you guys see that seems important?
That in the dragonfly wing are like circles in the line.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they have different shapes, right? The dragonfly wing is a curve, it's a little wavy, right? But when we look at a blackbird, this has a lot of curves right there. Blackbird has a really big curve right here. That was not a good drawing. Blackbird has a really curved wing, right? I can't draw today, man. You guys get what I mean. It has a big curve, but look at this one. This curve goes like this, and this curve goes like this. So the way that the wing is curved matters, right? You can also see this one is super, super skinny at the front, and this one is bigger right here, right? So the shape of your wing in every way matters. So because we think that the shape of it matters, next thing, do you guys know why the shape might matter? Do you guys have any ideas why the shape could be important?
Because if it's very big or very small, will affect the type the bird or the animal.
Yep, it has to fit the animal, right? Can you guys think of any other ways the wing shape is important? So this is on an airplane, but actually, let's look at this one. So see right here, this white thing right here, this is representing a wing, okay? Like that shape of a wing that we were just looking at. But the way that your wing is shaped changes something called the lift that your wing experiences. So there's a few things we're looking at here, right? When we're looking, these yellow lines show you how the air is moving around the wing. So what we can say is the way that our wing is shaped, how curved it is, how thick or thin, how long it is, what the front of it looks like, all of those things, right, are changing the way that the air moves around the wing. So we want the air to move around the wing correctly. And so why do you guys remember why we want the wing to move the air correctly?
The shape.
The shape is what determines it. But do you remember how a bird flies? Did we talk about that a little bit? You guys remember the concept of lift when we talked about that? Not really? Okay. So lift is something that tells how much up push you have, right? So when a bird is flying, it has to be going forward, right? So its wings are pushing it forward, but gravity is trying to pull the bird down, right? So the bird needs to figure out another way to push itself up in the air. And the way it does this is with something called lift, is what we call that. So we call gravity what's pulling the bird down, and we call lift what's making the bird go up. And the lift is determined by the shape of the wing because it matters how the air flows around it. But it also matters the type of pressure in the air. Do you guys remember when we talked about pressure last week? How hard pressure is firm and low pressure is low? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So can you guys tell me what you're thinking here? High pressure has to be under the wing. Does that make sense? And low pressure on top of the wing because we want it to push up. Can you guys tell me why that would be?
But why the more pressure is down than the over pressure? Why is no the?
Why is it not
no?
opposite?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I'm looking, let's say this is, my hands represent where the wing is, okay? So this hand is gonna push high pressure and it's gonna push that way, right? It's pushing a lot of pressure. And if this is low pressure, it's not pushing very hard against it. What direction am I gonna go? Am I gonna go towards my high pressure hand or my low pressure hand?
High pressure.
Exactly. So the direction of where my high pressure is, the more it pushes, it's going to go against the low pressure, right? It's going to win in a tug of war. So if a bird wants to go up, right, it needs to have high pressure under the wing. Because if the high pressure is pointing up, the bird will go up, right?